8 extinct animals we've lost in the past 150 years. In the past couple of decades, several species have been driven to extinction thanks, in large part, to human interference. Sometimes that interference is direct, poaching for big game trophies or animal tusks, and sometimes, it's indirect. This includes land development that disrupts habitats and entire ecosystems and the climate change problem. Still, there are things we can do to alleviate extinction rates, such as designating an area a wildlife refuge or a species is protected, and even creating a wildlife-friendly space in your own backyard. These are the incredible creatures we've driven to extinction in the last century and a half. Smooth handfish. For the first time in modern history, a marine fish species has been declared extinct. The smooth handfish, Sympterychthys unapennis, a shallow water bottom dweller with spiky fins and a barb-like protrusion on its forehead, has not been seen since 1802, when French biologist François Perrin helped scoop one up near the coast of Tasmania to bring back to Paris's Natural History Museum. Despite extensive searches over many years, no smooth handfish were ever seen again. In May, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature (IUCN), a global consortium of scientists that sets the conservation statuses of species, formally listed it as extinct. 13 other species of handfish, so named because they perch on the seafloor on fins that look like little hands and act like feet, are probably still around, though 7 of the species haven't been seen since 2000 or earlier. All but one species is considered endangered, critically endangered, or data deficient, meaning there's not enough information available to decide their status. The disappearance of the smooth handfish highlights how sensitive this family of fishes are to environmental disruptions such as climate change, habitat destruction, and pollution, because the smooth handfish was almost certainly common when scientists documented it for the first, and last, time, more than 200 years ago. Scientists say this milestone serves as a warning for what may come for other handfish species and other vulnerable, localized species. Bramble K Melamies. Now the eradication of the Bramble K Melamies has been officially recognized by Australia, its only known home. The Bramble K Melamies was a little brown rat. The rodent lived solely on a tiny sand island in the Torres Strait, near the coast of Papua New Guinea. The species has not been seen since 2009. Scientists say there is a chance that an identical or similar species could yet be discovered. The Australian government's decision to list the species as extinct comes after the Queensland state government made an identical determination in 2016. A state government report said it was almost certainly caused by ocean inundation of the low-lying K, very likely on multiple occasions, during the last decade, causing dramatic habitat loss and perhaps also direct mortality of individuals. It added, significantly, this probably represents the first recorded mammalian extinction due to anthropogenic climate change. The loss of an animal that was hardly known in the public mind has generated sadness in Australia and abroad. White rhinos. White rhinos are the second largest land mammal, and their name comes from the Afrikaans, a West Germanic language, word, wait, which means wide and refers to the animal's mouth. Also known as the square-lipped rhinoceros, white rhinos have a square upper lip with almost no hair. 2 genetically different subspecies exist, the northern and southern white rhino, and are found in 2 different regions in Africa. As of March 2018, there are only 2 rhinos of the northern white rhino left, both of which are female. They live in the Ol Pejeta Conservancy in Kenya and are protected round the clock by armed guards. Their near extinction is due to decades of rampant poaching for rhino horn. The majority, 98.8%, of the southern white rhinos occur in just 4 countries: South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Kenya. Southern white rhinos were thought to be extinct in the late 19th century, but in 1895 a small population of less than 100 individuals was discovered in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. After more than a century of protection and management, they are now classified as near-threatened, and 19,621,000 animals exist in protected areas and private game reserves. They are the only of the 5 rhino species that are not endangered. The Spix macaw. In the 2011 animated film Rio, Blue, a captive raised Spix's macaw, arrives in Brazil to mate with the last known wild member of his species, a female named Jewel. But according to the latest reports, Blue was already 11 years too late. Jewel, the last of her kind, likely perished in or around 2000. Spix's macaw, Cyanopsida spixi, is one of 8 species primed to have their extinctions either confirmed or deemed highly likely, following a new study by BirdLife International. The 8-year study used a new statistical approach to analyze 51 critically endangered species, quantifying 3 factors at once: intensity of threats, timing and reliability of records, and the timing and quantity of search efforts for the species. 5 of the 8 confirmed or suspected extinctions took place on the South American continent, 4 of them in Brazil, reflecting the devastating effects of the high rate of deforestation in this part of the world. 90% of bird extinctions in recent centuries have been of species on islands, says Dr. Stuart Butchart, BirdLife's chief scientist and lead author on the paper. However, our results confirm that there is a growing wave of extinctions sweeping across the continents, driven mainly by habitat loss and degradation from unsustainable agriculture and logging. Of the 8 species, it was recommended that 3 species should be reclassified as extinct: the cryptic treehunter Cyclocolaptes mazarbarneti and Alagoas foliage gleaner Philetor novisi, 2 ovenbirds from northeast Brazil, and Puuli Melamprosops pheasoma, formerly of Hawaii, which has not been seen in the wild since 2004, the same year the last captive individual died. The data also suggests another 4 species should be reclassified as critically endangered, possibly extinct, a category that indicates that the species is highly likely to be extinct, but further search efforts are required before we can definitively rule it to be extinct. The thylacine, Thylacinus cynocephalus, dog-headed pouched dog, is a large carnivorous marsupial now believed to be extinct. It was the only member of the family Thylacinidae to survive into modern times. It is also known as the Tasmanian tiger or Tasmanian wolf. The thylacine was sandy yellowish brown to gray in color and had 15 to 20 distinct dark stripes across the back from shoulders to tail. Although the large head was dog or wolf-like, the tail was stiff and the legs were relatively short. Body hair was dense, short and soft, to 15 millimeters in length. It had short ears, about 80 millimeters long, that were erect, rounded and covered with short fur. Jaws were large and powerful and there were 46 teeth. Adult male thylacine were larger on average than females. The female thylacine had a back-opening pouch. The litter size was up to 4 and the young were dependent on the mother until at least half-grown. Interestingly, males also had a back-opening, partial pouch. At one time the thylacine was widespread over continental Australia, extending north to New Guinea and south to Tasmania. In recent times it was confined to Tasmania, where its presence has not been established conclusively for more than 70 years. In Tasmania the species was best known from the north and east coast and Midland Plains region rather than from the mountains of the southwest. Although the precise reasons for extinction of the thylacine from mainland Australia are not known, it appears to have declined as a result of competition with the dingo and perhaps hunting pressure from humans. The thylacine became extinct on the Australian mainland not less than 2,000 years ago. Its decline and extinction in Tasmania was probably hastened by the introduction of dogs, but appears mainly due to direct human persecution as an alleged pest. The passenger pigeon. Although passenger pigeons were the victims of human hunters, we still don't understand precisely how a species can decline from billions to none within a period of 50 years. Can genetics give us any useful clues? As extinctions go, the extinction of the passenger pigeon is truly a stupendous human achievement, unparalleled in recorded history. Thanks to our penchant for relentless killing combined with large-scale habitat destruction, these iconic birds' population crashed from billions to zero in just 50 years. But how could these birds decline so rapidly? Surely, people did not murder every last one of them, did they? Shouldn't mind-bogglingly huge and widespread populations protect a species from extinction? Why didn't some pigeons survive in remote areas? In a study published in 2014, researchers sought to understand how such an abundant species could possibly be driven extinct, particularly since many scientists have estimated that passenger pigeons were, arguably, the most populous bird species on the planet, ever. Despite their huge population, the 2014 study indicated that passenger pigeons had much less genetic diversity than expected. The authors of that study suggested that passenger pigeons were not always superabundant. The researchers' analysis suggested that passenger pigeons' numbers had either exploded recently, similar to the current human population explosion, or their population fluctuated naturally by 1,000-fold or more within short time periods. This population pattern is seen in several outbreak species, such as Australian plague locusts, Tortoise terminifera, or lemmings, Lemmus lemmus. The recently extinct Pyrenean ibex, also known by the Spanish common name bucardo, was one of the 4 subspecies of wild goat to inhabit the Iberian Peninsula. An attempt to clone the Pyrenean ibex was carried out in 2009, marking it the first species to undergo extinction, but the clone died due to physical defects in its lungs 7 minutes after its birth. Capra pyrenaica was a mountain goat which was substantially bigger and had larger horns than its extant cousins, C. p. hispanica and C. p. victorii. It was also called the Pyrenean wild goat and, in Spain, the bucardo. During the summer, the male bucardo had a coat of short, pale grayish-brown fur with sharply defined black patches. During winter it grew thicker, combining longer hair with a layer of short thick wool, and its patches were less sharply defined. They had a short stiff mane above the neck, and two very large, thick curving horns that described a half-spiral twist. The horns typically grew to 31 inches in length, with a distance between them of about 16 inches. One set of horns in Musée de Bagnères at Luchon, France, measures 40 inches long. Adult males' bodies were just under 5 feet long, stood 30 inches at the shoulder, and weighed 130 to 150 pounds. Female ibex coats were more consistently brown, lacking the patches and with very short, lyre-shaped and cylindrical ibex's horns. They lacked the male's manes. Young of both sexes retained the color of the mother's coat until after the first year when the males began to develop the black patches. While the exact cause of the Pyrenean ibex's extinction is unknown, scientists hypothesize that some different factors contributed to the decline of the species, including poaching, disease, and the inability to compete with other domestic and wild ungulates for food and habitat. Golden toad. The golden toad was a small amphibian ranging from 39–56 centimeters long. Males were a brilliant, bright orange and females exhibited a variety of colors, sometimes black, yellow, green, red or white. B. Peregrines was once abundant in the cloud forest north of Monteverde, Costa Rica, a tropical, montane forest that experiences frequent cloud cover. Only discovered in 1964 and last seen in 1989, the golden toad was the first species to become extinct as a direct result of climate change. The golden toad population experienced a sudden, damaging crash in 1987, along with nearly half of all other frogs and toads within 30 kilometers of its range. This area was free from direct human intervention, leading biologists to believe that the golden toad's extinction was the result of climate change. As the rainforest gradually became hotter and drier, the toad was more susceptible to the deadly chytrid fungus which has decimated frog and toad populations worldwide. As amphibians breathe through their skin, they are particularly sensitive to subtle changes in their environments brought on by an increase in temperature or pollutants. They are likened to the proverbial canary in a coal mine as early indicators of catastrophic changes in ecosystems. In 2009, the Amphibian Survival Alliance was launched to save what remains of the 30% of amphibian species that are threatened with extinction. Thank you for watching.